Good evening, folks. Welcome to ATL, the Atheist Troll Live. I'm Pasta Mike doing the introduction for Just Jeff tonight. Got a good show coming up tonight. So we got Carson O'Kimball on tonight, and a little bit about Carson. Carson was born in 1995 in Linden, Utah. He's the eldest of 5 brothers, and he married his sweetheart, Scarlett. He's received a high school diploma from Leahona Preparatory Academy. And he's a proud member of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints and was born into the covenant. He's the author of Widow to His Love, a book about growing up in the life of the LDS and finding one's purpose through the trials and adversity. It's also a book about the purpose of friendship. He's currently writing a sophomore book, Peg, The Dark Synergy of Porn, Excessive Eating, and Gaming. He's a small business owner, an amateur songwriter, an author, and internet broadcaster. Now, how Jeff came to find Carson was through his creation of Mormon Talk, a call-in show primarily intended to facilitate discussion about God, Mormonism, and general life advice. From what we know about Carson, he's a cool dude. And tonight, he is Jeff's special guest.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Atheist Troll Live. This is going to be a special episode today. We have a special guest with us from another call-in TV show or call-in YouTube show, Mr. Carson O'Kimball. But before we pull him on, I want to give you a little bit of a background. I watch YouTube pretty consistently at night, and you get recommended videos that pop up every once in a while. And a while ago, my girlfriend and I were watching YouTube, and his show popped up for whatever reason on my YouTube stuff. So started watching some of that. Very, very entertaining show. And I hope you guys do check it out. You can find him at Mormon Talk on YouTube. And they have some other channels too. But right now, YouTube is primarily where you're going to find the bulk of their content. And they have currently been working with a contest with SingStar, which has also been very, very entertaining. If you guys check that out, it's something to watch. I'm also wearing one of the new shirts today. This is a Second Kings quote. Got the shirt. You can find all of my merch. Of course, now you can actually just type in Atheist Troll merch on YouTube or on Google, and you'll be able to find it. Takes you to our page here that looks like this, and we have the new bears killing children verse. You can get stickers, you can get shirts. We have t-shirts. We have several different options there. And of course, our Psalms quote is also available there. So yeah, we have some new merch that's out. So check that out in your free time. And then while you're at it, pull up Mormon Talk. Mormon Talk can be found again. Find my, there it is. Okay. So Mormon Talk you can find on YouTube right there. Mormon Talk TM. But Mormon Talk, you can go ahead and give them a sub, and you can see that they've been doing SingStar here a few different days. We're on to group 1 or we're on group 3 now. Well, I'll ask Carson when he gets in here. Carson's back in the green room. Let's go ahead and bring him on, huh? Carson, how's it going?
Hello there, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah. So I've been, of course, me and some of the others have been watching this show now for a couple weeks. But it was actually my girlfriend that found the show, and she's the one that's really obsessed with it, especially the SingStar competition because she loves competitions. And so, are we on group 3 now? I know we had group 1 and 2. Where are we at?
Right. So groups 1 and 2 were merely just the audition phase of the competition. That's where people were, coming on, and then my temporary co-host Fred A. Phillips and I would decide if someone would be formidable on the competition itself. And so now there is no group 1 or 2. It's all just one group, and those are all the official contestants. And our last episode of SingStar was the first episode where they all competed, and our audience got to vote 2 people off of the island, if you will. And it was an emotional moment. So
And
that's all you can really ask for.
So you're tomorrow night. You got a show tomorrow night.
Right. Tomorrow is not SingStar. SingStar is every other week this summer until July 5th, our finale episode of SingStar. But in between SingStar episodes, just our normative Mormon talk format of taking calls about faith and sharing sharing our beliefs. So,
well, you brought a clip with you from the show. I'm going to show the clip now. This is the SingStar competition that we're talking about. So if you guys want to check this out, again, it's Mormon Talk on YouTube. You can find that. Like he was saying, season finale coming up pretty quick. So here's the clip.
And the performances are about to begin. The first contestant of the night is a familiar member of the Mormon Talk community, a child, a young boy from the city of Pennsylvania, all the way performing live from over there.
I'm sure you can guess who it is by this point. If not, we're about to reveal.
Well, wonderful. So, everyone, please welcome Brother Nick to the stage.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I thought I was going second. So I just.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. I can. I'm ready. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, all the way from the from warm, sunny Pennsylvania, we bring to you Brother Nick.
Yeah. Hey guys. All right. I'm ready. Here we go. I'm gonna be singing "Bring Me to Life" by Evanescence.
Just go for it.
Okay.
We're ready. Totally.
I'm ready too. It's loading. Sorry. Okay. Can you hear the background music?
Yes. The time is yours.
How can you see into my eyes like open doors, leading you down into my core when I become so numb without a soul? My spirit sleeping somewhere cold until you find it there and lead it back home. Wake me up inside. Wake me up and save me. Call my name and save me from the dark.
That's just a little taste of what you get on Monday nights when there's a SingStar episode. So don't miss out.
And I'm just going to go ahead and say it was a rough it was a rough run so far. It's our first time doing this, so things, especially with Nick, didn't go as smoothly. He wasn't ready when we called him on, and it just looked really bad on our part. But hopefully next time it'll run a little bit smoother. So
we always live and learn, and although I've been very impressed with the graphics, with how however you're doing the green screening and getting people in there for them to do that stuff, because it does look tasking. It looks like a lot of work to get that to work correctly. I would not risk that on my side. I don't know the software that well, but apparently they do. So they're able to get it in. And then also recently, talk about your book. You can get the book on Amazon. It's called Window to His Love, which is available on Amazon if you so desire. I picked up a copy, which I have here, and I've read through it, and it is entertaining to say the least. Especially your topics at the end, which we'll talk about later. But you grew up in a Mormon household with a good number of siblings, I would say. What was that like? And did you always live in Utah?
Yes, I've always lived in Utah, with the exception I did serve a mission for 2 years, and so I guess that counts as living elsewhere. I lived in Nevada for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but
somewhere warm at least.
Yeah, I mean, not that much different, to be honest. Utah is a lot hotter during like the warmer seasons than you might think. Especially like in Utah Valley area, which is where I live, the summer can get to like 110 degrees. So it's not much different than Nevada. But yeah, I did grow up in Utah. I was born in Linden, but I've lived in kind of the Lehigh area most of my life. And I do love living in Utah. It's definitely changed a lot since I was a kid. There's a lot more of I mean, things used to be a little more, I guess you could say, homogenous in terms of like the church, but in recent years, we've just had a lot of people move in from other states like California, and a lot of people just who maybe have left the church have become a little more outspoken, and so it can feel like you're in like a social battleground sometimes. But I still love Utah.
I lived in Denver for a couple of years, which is not too far away, but it's far away because people don't realize how big the distance is when you get out to the west when you start going through states. So I've not been to Utah though. I would really like to do some snowboarding out there in Utah, Park City area, and some of that sometime. But so what's like? I think that we're seeing that problem. The California problem is one that we're seeing not just in Utah, but in Colorado and Texas. It seems to be a lot of people that are fleeing.
In Idaho,
fleeing California. Do you think that that's having a negative influence on your area and your church and other fellow parishioners?
I wouldn't say a negative influence. No. It's just a change. Change is inevitable in life. And you grow accustomed to a place and it's like your home, and it has all these beautiful aspects to it that you identify with. And then so it can be a little bit off-putting when a bunch of people move from a totally different type of culture to where you live, and they don't appreciate it in the same way you do. And it's kind of like a cloud of locusts coming in and devouring something. That's how you're tempted to see it. But in reality, we all share this planet, we all share this earth. And I'm glad that people who have moved from, California fled the state, frankly, just because of the taxes and the high costs of living. I'm grateful that some of them have chosen to, set up camp in my beautiful home of Utah. So I welcome all the people from California that I run into all the time.
And then do you think that there's having this extra influence, we'll say, of non-Mormon people, do you think that there's a perpetual, maybe, what am I trying to say? A stereotype of Mormon culture or Mormon life that they get wrong? Or is there something about being Mormon that you think is just overly done incorrectly or represented poorly?
So that's a very good question. There are definitely stereotypes that go along with being a member of the church, and we I think that we as members kind of try and play with them and have fun with them sometimes. We don't drink coffee, we don't drink tea. People think that's just so weird. And so sometimes we like to wear those peculiarities on our sleeves, and they're always great conversation starters. So, I mean, I'm okay with those stereotypes. Now, I think that some stereotypes can be negative and can deter people from wanting to learn more about you. They make a judgment on your character that's based on falsities, and I think that can be definitely disappointing sometimes because, I mean, like I've said before, members of the church, we're a very, very low population on this planet, and but we're peculiar people, we're interesting people, we have beliefs that I think everyone would do well to at least learn about and be open to learning about, not necessarily believe in, but learn about. And so it's a shame when some people are just, they have no desire because they assume negative things about you. They want to discriminate, I guess.
See, so I'm trying to think about the first time I learned about Mormonism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up Catholic. So I grew up in a family that was all Roman Catholic. My grandparents were from Czechoslovakia. They were, their parents were all Catholic. I also have a pretty large, my parents had a pretty large family. Both of them had 4 brothers or sisters. My mom had 3 sisters, 1 brother. My dad had 3 brothers, 1 sister. And so they had pretty large families too, all Catholic. So I grew up in kind of a Catholic doctrine, and it wasn't until I moved out of Georgia and into Colorado that I started even like experiencing other religions, or realizing that there were like that many other religions out there, really. And I can't think and I think that probably one of the biggest like stereotypical things that we get in the mainstream is going to be like either the South Park or the Broadway show. Like that's probably what we hear about first when it comes to Mormonism. Have you seen either one of those pieces?
This might be disappointing, but no. And the reason why is not because I'm afraid to be offended or something, but just because I think that I'm a strong believer that the things that you take in kind of make you into who you are.
Sure.
And so what I do know about like for instance, the Broadway musical is that the songs are particularly irreverent or just full of bad language, just intended to kind of shock you. And I think I get enough of that just running Mormon Talk and getting calls and stuff. So I haven't seen them, but I am definitely aware that those two those representations of the church have started a conversation. And I like that conversation. And I hope that conversation leads to members of the church and saying, hey, do you really believe in what I saw in, South Park or whatever? Or, what? So I like those conversations.
And I would say, and people will really go after South Park a lot, but I've learned a lot of life lessons from South Park, and I think that's just the way that I am. We talked earlier about how I kind of counter troll the trolls. Well, I think that from a satirical way, South Park does a really good job of taking on some really complex social issues and boiling it down. The episode about Mormonism isn't really anything other than somewhat the story of Mormonism. It doesn't lie for the most part, according to most people that are Mormon that have seen it. It is satirical. It does make fun of things, obviously. I can remember watching when I was a Catholic. I was very defensive of the Catholic faith, and they make fun of Catholics like on a regular basis. Typical like molestation joke or something like that. I can remember being very like angry about why they would do that, but I could also sit back and laugh at every other episode that they ever made about Scientology or whatever else. And so it wasn't until I had to be like, look, if you're gonna get offended about that, you need to have a level playing field with what it is. But I've seen the play twice. I 100% agree with you. It is, there are some very dirty songs. The episode, not so much. I don't think there's much there. But I have read the Joseph Smith starts his work, which is some of the original about 1850 writings from Joseph Smith. That's where I always like to go to the original as much as possible to the event so that I can get a good taste of what he was talking about and what he saw and what he experienced. So you grew up surrounded by Mormons. Like what does your process look like when it comes to sort of solidifying your faith in your eyes? Like, how do you justify that you're following the right faith, if that makes sense?
That's a very good question. And here's what I think. And here's what I challenge everyone to do. God is, I believe in God, obviously. God is able to work with every single human on this planet. The way that I solidify my faith is by recognizing how he works with me. And this is something that's common to everybody. All of us know deep down inside, basically right from wrong. We do. It's inherent within us. We can feel if something is going to harm another person unjustly or not, or harm ourselves. And so you start there. You start in that really, really small, quiet part of you. And you just do things that you normally wouldn't do. You do things that are braver, that go be outside of your nature. And you follow that path. And as you keep following that path, it's like you're collecting like light. It fills you and it enlightens your mind. And when your mind is truly clear, when your conscience is truly clear, if you're living by your conscience and you're humbling yourself and you're watching yourself and you're making sure you do the best you can to follow that still small voice, that is faith. That is the process that I follow that deepens my assurance that I am a child of God, and that that there's more to this life than what we just can see. There is. I know there is. And how does that correlate with my faith? Well, when I read the scriptures, when I read the Book of Mormon, that light that I collect independently of the Book of Mormon, when I have that within me, I'm able to recognize it in other places. I'm able to discern it in other places. And when I read the Book of Mormon, it's like it splashes out at me, with every turn of every page, and just fills me up with the same substance that I can find outside of the Book of Mormon. And so it's a line upon line process. It's not a ritual that I do that solidifies my faith. It's just, there's this love Saturday, and there's this quote in that musical. There's this young man who lives in this family, and he's kind of wayward. And then he has an older sister who she's wheelchair bound, and he's wayward, and he's like having a conversation with her. He's like, "Gosh, you and your perfect faith, Pam. How can you have so much faith in a God when you can't even walk?" And she sensed within him that he had this desire for freedom from his faith, freedom from his family's values, freedom from God, freedom from living according to expectations that his parents set on him. And she said to him, "Jimmy, freedom is knowing who you are. That's all it is. If you know who you are, if you know that there's more to this life than what we think, than what we can see, if we know deep within ourselves that we are children of the creator of this universe, that is freedom. And it leads you to joy, and your spirit is free." That's my belief.
So, one, thank you for that. Thanks Good answer. So I've been reading. I got your book.
Mhm.
You explore some interesting topics.
Yes, I do.
So so I'm just going to read the first paragraph of this. So this is about extraterrestrials.
Okay.
You wrote, while atheists ridicule and scoff at the very notion of supernatural or divine reality, they are often attracted to the notion of extraterrestrial life. This notion is complementary to their godless worldview as a fictitious idea that serves to undermine belief in God. They happily expose it without evidence. So what's the deal? Why do you hate extraterrestrials?
So getting into some Mormon theology, this is what I believe.
Okay.
I believe that I am a son of God and that I'm created by, in the likeness of my heavenly Father. I believe that my heavenly Father has more worlds to deal with than just this one, and I think it's my belief that those worlds are inhabited by sentient beings just like you and I. And however that developed over time, however those worlds or ours itself got to that point, whether it's through evolution, whatever it is, that is the whole point of all of it. And so the notion that there are beings that are like unto us in intelligence that look different than we do, it's just a zane. I can understand why everyone on the outside of, who doesn't believe in that doctrine would assume in extraterrestrial life, like the aliens with the big giant black eyes and the bald heads and whatever. So there's no evidence of extraterrestrials in that likeness other than people just professing that. Kind of like how you'd see religion. People purport to see angels or to have communion with God or whatever, but where's the hard evidence? And so what I've noticed with atheism, if I may, is a lot of and I'm not saying this is a universal truth. I think a lot of atheists are very concrete minded, like they just want the physical evidence, and that's where they base their beliefs. And of course you have to make some assumptions in life. Not everything, you're not going to have evidence for everything.
Yeah, you're not proof, we'll say.
Yeah, you're not. Like when you close your eyes at night, you have no evidence that a reptile is not going to come and bite you in the groin, and you won't wake up in the morning. Like you can assume that based on that's kind of a weird example, but back to the extraterrestrial thing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people assume that extraterrestrials are just, of course they're among us. Of course they're flying around in flying saucers and they're interacting with us and they're probing us and they're studying us. We have no evidence other than these fake pictures that people take that are super easy to fake.
Sure.
But yeah, of course they exist, but I mean, nothing else supernatural exists. Of course.
What's aggravating the hell out of me right now is these videos that keep coming up on YouTube where they're like, the Navy has released videos of UFOs, and like the FBI released. And first off, it's evidence of a UFO is evidence of an unidentified flying object. It is not evidence of extraterrestrials from another planet visiting our planet. I believe that there are beings on other planets somewhere in our galaxy, but I do not know that there are beings from another galaxy. So I have not seen any evidence, and I try to keep my skepticism level. And I think that's one thing atheists can do better is they will do things like, well, of course, God is, not real and evolution is true, but they're unable to explain evolution to me. So they've accepted evolution without actually investigating them themselves. I'm not saying that evolution is wrong. I absolutely agree with evolution, but I want you to do the legwork as an atheist before you blindly accept any claim, whatever it may be, from any person.
Right.
The UFO thing is one where I get so aggravated by that, that and Bigfoot, as I have a thing for Bigfoot, because people will say things like, of course we have all this evidence that Jesus did this, but I have just as much evidence for other things like Bigfoot. And so I don't think that we have a level playing field when it comes to the skepticism that we have for those claims. The UFOs one being it. There's no reason for an advanced species to come visit us and tinker with us in the nighttime. Like, I just don't, that's a primitive thought.
Right. I mean, I guess some people could say that just like we try to study different ecosystems, like from a biological perspective, maybe extraterrestrials who have the technology and capability are coming and studying us without trying to interfere with us too much, without making their presence super, just, I guess you could say, explicit, and announcing their arrival. Hey, we're going to study you guys, because obviously that would change our behavior.
Yeah,
because we'd be in a panic mode rather than in our normal state. So, I mean, I guess I could see the logic. Some people would believe that we're being visited discreetly by extraterrestrials, but I still, just like you said, you've got to do the legwork. You've got to arrive to that conclusion based on something more than just imagination.
Yeah, for sure.
And you might be surprised to hear me say that, because I'm a religious man and I obviously am a man of faith as well. But I still believe, and Mormons believe, you've got to do the work. Now that work, you might not have much stock in that process necessarily, but I have the same problem myself when I see members of the church that are just assuming something is true about their religion, and they're talking about it as if they already know it. That's baloney. You don't already know it. You've got to do the work. You've got to, like I said, you got to go through that process that I talked about. You got to follow that still small voice and then arrive to that grand theophany. If that's what you experience, you can't just assume something. You've got to investigate yourself.
What is so I keep hearing, so I'm big on TikTok. I got like 1,000 people that follow me. I'm really big on TikTok. I keep seeing it. There's a large ex-Mormon community on TikTok, and they keep talking about some CES letter or something like that. What are they talking about? What is this thing? And have you read it?
Right. I've skimmed through it. I've read a little bit of it just because, I mean, I've been sent the CES letter over and over again, after hosting Mormon Talk. I'll admit I didn't know about it until I started hosting Mormon Talk. But it's basically what it is it's a document written by some guy named Jeremy Rumbles or something, and he did he left the church, and then he lived on Reddit in the ex-Mormon Reddit community, and a bunch of he was constantly just reading posts and stuff and collecting just evidence that as he saw it against the church. And eventually he decided to compile it all into this big giant organized list, and he sent it to a CES director. CES stands for Church Educational System. It's the church's official, educators, people who go to school to become teachers, to teach Mormon theology, history, etc. Right. He sent it to a director of the CES to get the guy to answer his, he called them questions. But in my view, it was not in good faith. He wasn't actually wanting answers. He had already made his decision, and he wanted to make a big giant public stink. And so what he did is he created this website and he publicized it a bunch, got tons of donations, like, oh yeah, donate to me for this PDF that I posted online to keep the PDF alive. Oh, whatever. Come on. You don't need people to donate thousands of dollars to you so that you can keep an internet domain up. It doesn't cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's baloney. So that's basically it.
You think he did it for fame and fortune?
It's that cut and dry. Of course, he probably had a lot of frustration as well. A lot of frustration because the information that he was presenting was information that rocked his world, that took something away from him, the church, which was special to him. And so he was naturally angry. So I think that there was an element of anger to it. I think there was an element of attention seeking. And I think there's also an element of greed. But charitably speaking, he was just set.
So, so watching your show, you get quite a few internet trolls that call into your show.
Oh, only a little.
Call in. They leave you funny messages. They give you some calls. So how have you found the best way to deal with that on your show when you get these phone calls or these messages? Like, what is your strategy? How do you deal with a person who calls into your show to just cause problems?
Well, we're still working that out because there's no silver bullet besides shutting the show down,
Right.
or shutting down the calls. There's no way to ensure that people are not going to trick you and call in bad faith and mess with you. But how do you respond when they do? Well, in this is something that I'm really coming to learn. I'm actually writing a song about this. This is the first place that I've said that, but I'm writing a song kind of to process some of my, I guess, my bad feelings toward these people. You don't let them distract you from your purpose. That's it. That's all. What a troll wants is they want to derail you. They want you to veer off course so that you won't stay on focus, because the troll doesn't think you should be focusing on what you're talking about. The troll thinks you should be focusing on them. That's what a troll does. They call in, they say the N-word, they sometimes they have something more crafty because they want to get a laugh. They want to see you crack. They want to see you get upset. They want to see you react to them. And that's inevitably going to happen sometimes. But you've sometimes. And I mean I'm a so I'm using my mail, that probably wouldn't be the best term to use. But you know what I mean. You've sometimes got to show your teeth.
And I think
when it's appropriate.
If I'm specifically after a show, we'll say, so it's not, the goal is to distract the viewer, to make you the center of attention, to get a rise in the emotions of the other person. That's absolutely 100% the goal of a troll. I can attest to that 100%. So I the way I get around that right now, especially with certain, I would say, content creators that are making videos about Christianity with the knowledge of, someone that's been a Christian for 6 months or less, is I just put Bible verses in. That's about it, and I can distract an entire stream with a couple Bible verses, depending on who the creator is. Having them read Bible verses on their live shows, things like that, is typically a go-to. But how can I, think about it, like I'm having you read your book and you're getting upset with me, is really my troll on that. It's weird to me how upset people get from me asking them to read the Bible on their show. It's interesting. But so here's what I want to do. I want to talk about one more thing in the book. Then I'm going to open phone lines, and I'm going to go ahead and put the number down at the bottom. So you guys can get ready, viewers, if you want to call in. 678-506-5108. That's 678-506-5108. That is my cell phone number. It's my personal number. It's my only number. And yeah, there it is. What's up with furry culture?
Okay.
You got a whole chapter about furry culture, and to be honest with you, I didn't know about furries until I read this.
Well, it's like a page and a half, if I remember correctly.
It's a page.
A page. Okay, yeah. So what I tried to do in the latter half of my book is, okay, so we, as members of the church, we have the scriptures. We have our modern day prophets who talk to us twice a year at general conference. We have a lot of stuff, but not every topic is addressed. And sometimes there's these nuanced parts of, I guess, culture that people are not so clear about. Like, for instance, Mormons believe in the, I say Mormons because that's what people are familiar with as the term. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But we live by something called the Word of Wisdom. And the Word of Wisdom outlines basically keep your body clean. And it gives some specifics, but it says this is for the weakest of you. Don't drink alcohol. Don't drink tea, coffee, stuff like that. But people have a question of, okay, well, should I be drinking energy drinks, or should I be toking hemp or smoking? It doesn't say don't smoke hemp or to smoke ecstasy or something. It just says don't smoke tobacco. So what should I do? And so it's like, to someone who truly lives the Word of Wisdom, it's a no-brainer. Don't smoke anything that alters your mind, because the principle is there in the Word of Wisdom. So people have those questions sometimes. And so I see like furries or whatever, the furry culture, as that example of like, okay, we already know we're not supposed to smoke tobacco, but should we be smoking crack? We already know that we shouldn't be living a perverse lifestyle sexually, but should we be furries? So I just go ahead and I address that in my book because it's something I've been asked before. And I'll be honest with you.
Who asked you about furries?
Okay.
Is that a common question?
We had this frequent caller named the Pi 20 in the very early days of Mormon Talk. And he'd call in relentlessly. And I'll admit he kind of got under my skin one time, and he was trying to claim that I'm a furry. And I didn't quite realize exactly what he meant. I quickly looked it up, and it made sense to me. My little brother, Wilson, is very into like memes and stuff. And he talked to me about furries before and showed me furry fan art and stuff, just making fun of it kind of. And this guy claimed that I was a furry or something, and it got under my skin. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell people what I think about furries in my book. And so I had written most of Women With Love at that point, but I injected my section on furry culture, which is page is it 86 of my book?
That's correct.
I injected that in kind of the last couple of weeks before publication. So
and you have a chapter about marijuana as well, which, so smoking, I mean, obviously, yeah. So so I know there's no caffeine, no tea. Is that sugar? Like what else is the things because sugar can be mind altering. Like a lot of substances can be mind altering that aren't necessarily on the naughty list.
I absolutely. Yeah. If it's mind altering or habit forming or contributes to poor health, don't do it. And the thing about sugar is it's going to be very difficult for you to avoid sugar because it's in like fructose is in apples, sugar is in lots of things. So you can't avoid it altogether, but you have to consume it mindfully and in moderation. And if it becomes a heavily mind altering thing, definitely you're overdoing it. But then there's also something, so it's like, well, can I drink a sip of alcohol then? If it doesn't really mess with my mind? No, because you're still edging, A lot of people think that as long as you don't go off the edge, you can just hang out on the edge and keep edging and edging and edging and building up that tension between you doing what's right and doing what's wrong, that you're in a safe place. I'd say I kind of, did my video go out? Oh no, it's still there. Great. Sorry, my screen just went black.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh no, you're okay. Would you rather a school bus driver drive your kids who's super good at driving and he can drive on the edge of a cliff and not fall? Or would you rather someone drive the bus who's going to stay as far away from the edge of that cliff as possible? That's how I think of it. So just, if it's something like marijuana, stay away from it because
Why? So I was reading the part about the word of wisdom. Why is human placenta specifically notated? What is that about? I don't understand.
Gotcha. So again, those nuances in our modern culture. The word of wisdom is very limited in the scriptures. So if we take that principle, what else that's not mentioned explicitly in the Doctrine and Covenants should we also be staying away from? Human placenta is part of the human body. I don't think we should be eating human flesh.
Who is eating that?
Oh
Is
my
that
goodness. It's a thing in Utah. It's a thing.
What?
There are a lot of moms in Utah who are just health crazed. They're into all the new health crazes that are popular, and they're like, ooh, human placenta is super rich in vitamins and minerals. It's a wealth of vitamins and minerals. Yeah. So after my child's born, I'm going to blend my human placenta into a smoothie and drink protein. It's a real thing. Look it up. There's cookbooks for human placentas on Amazon. It's pretty gross. But it's not that it's gross that makes it wrong. It's that you're eating human flesh, and I don't think that we're supposed to be eating body parts.
I agree with you on that one. I don't. Up until this conversation today, right now, I did not know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, guys, in the comments, we have the phone lines open, 678-506-5108. Nobody's called me yet, which is crazy. But also, we're going to be taking Q&A here in about 10 minutes. So get your questions ready for Carson or myself, whatever it may be. And maybe we might have somebody here maybe in this afternoon to talk about maybe eating body parts and taking some Q&A. We'll see. That's coming up here in a moment. But Carson, your new book, tell me what you're working on.
Right. So I'm writing a new book called Peg, The Dark Synergy, Porn, Excessive Eating, and Gaming. And basically what it is it's exploring ultimately the things that are kind of robbing particularly young men, the rising generation of young men. It's sapping them of their purpose, their energy, and their confidence. And I talk about how, sometimes two or sometimes all three of those things, sometimes there's even more factors, can create a vicious cycle in a young man's life that keeps him down and keeps him away from really maximizing his potential. And it's something I care about a lot. I'm the eldest of four brothers that are young, or five brothers total.
Uh-oh.
And
oh, you're cutting out on me. Is he back?
Hold on one moment.
Oh, there we go. Hey, just so everybody knows, Murdershed might be here for Q&A. You never know when he comes in. And much like Oz, we prefer super chats to find them easier so he can keep track of your chats. So super chats are there. And hey, I had to buy this expensive audio equipment. So buy a shirt and send us a super chat so I can pay off my audio equipment. It's expensive, guys. Okay. This stuff doesn't sell itself. All right. Buy a shirt. Sorry about that.
No, you're totally fine. Sorry that my internet cut out.
But you were saying, you're the eldest of five brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I care a lot about young men. I think that's why people are attracted. We have a lot of male viewers in Mormon Talk. I was looking at the analytics the other day, and it's like 90% male viewers.
Young
mm-hmm. Well, actually, no. Most of our male viewers are actually older than 30. It's kind of surprising. But nevertheless, these are issues that don't get talked about that much.
Well, what is it
It's a
about?
problem.
Are you saying that the younger male, like young boys, are overindulging in gaming and porn and things like that, and that's distracting them from their purpose in life? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's doing more than distracting them from their purpose in life. But yes, I am 100% taking that position. And I think that if someone were to think of their advancement in life like they think of something like World of Warcraft or something, they're constantly thinking about advancing up levels or completing quests or accumulating new armor or whatever. If someone would apply those same principles in the real world and have confidence in themselves as a player in the real world, I think that they could really unlock some wonderful potential. But I think that one of the reasons why people go into gaming, and it's not the only reason, there's more, but one of the negative reasons is men, we really like to live on the edge of what is possible. We like to experience freedom. Like when you're watching someone play football, like a team, what you're essentially watching is you're watching this interplay between two teams just battling each other. But it's that moment where one of them grabs the ball and they run to the end zone, they score a touchdown. That freedom, that moment of just overcoming is something that men naturally gravitate toward. And so the greater point is when people are playing video games, they have this idea that they're free to do all these crazy things that they can't do in real life. They get to triumph over the other team or defeat all these different enemies or something like that. But they're sitting on a couch wasting away with their thumbs twiddling while they're doing it. And it's my view that video games hijack, and it's not just for young men, women too, but video games hijack that human spirit and plug it into something that's not going to get you anywhere. You should plug into something that will actualize your potential.
Sure.
And that's just something I'm very passionate about.
So
That's why I'm writing a book.
There's a very prominent ex-Mormon, and I don't want to use his name because I don't particularly care for this individual, who makes a lot of recordings of things inside the church.
New name Noah.
Yes. So I know he's called your show before. Maybe twice. Maybe once or no, just once.
Much more than twice.
Okay. Well, I've only seen 2, but then again, I haven't watched every single episode yet. So, but
Good luck.
Yeah. So, but these, I've had the opportunity to speak with him. I'm not a big fan. More recently, there has been obviously a lot of backlash to some of his comments that he's made in the community. And I can't really stand behind a lot of that side of him. However, the exposure to these traditions and things like that are going on inside the church, do you think that this is damaging to the reputation of Mormonism? Do you think that this is, exposing maybe something that isn't to be exposed? Or do you think that he's gaining, he has gained a lot of traction within the ex-Mormon community? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on, so 2 things is what he has done damaging the church. I don't necessarily think it's doing anything. I think what it is it's making people be like, oh, that's weird, because he's filming things that are completely out of context, and he's doing so in a way that's like, oh my gosh, it's an inside look of what's going on in the temple, and this is so crazy and so weird and whatever. People don't think anything else of it that other than, wow, that's strange. So is that damaging? No, not really. I don't think so. I don't think that it really turns people off. I think it just confirms. I think it's just people who hate the church, they'll point at that and be like, look at this, look at how weird that is. But people who are not hateful toward the church, or they're just like, okay, that's weird, that's interesting, don't care, whatever.
Do you think it would be better if they like cleared it up by maybe making some of these events more public or more easier understood to the general population?
No, I don't think it. I don't think. I mean, sure, if people want to learn about it, they can. They have Google. But do I think that it would really help? No, because I think that in order to understand something like what's happening in the temple, there's a lot of context. You've got to have an understanding about God, the restored gospel, and all this stuff before then, and then it makes sense. So I think if you were going to try and teach about the temple to the general public, it'd be kind of like Elon Musk trying to just go give a talk in a high school about how, I guess, aerospace physics or something like that. It wouldn't help. It would just be like it'd be weird. But Mike Norton, new name Noah, what I think about him, he's just an attention seeker, and that's all this stuff proves. Not just his posting of stuff in the temple or whatever, but I mean all the other behaviors that have kind of been brought to light in recent weeks. It's all the same exact thing. His posting videos of the temple is the same. It's the same motivation. It's not to try and expose or harm the church. It's to get attention. It's to be validated. He wants to feel valid, because there's something within that guy that does not, I don't know. Maybe he just feels like people just don't like him. I don't know what it is, but he wants people to validate him really bad. And whether it's these women or people on the news or atheists or ex-Mormons, wherever he can find that validation, he's going to try and gain attention.
Well, I don't have his intro, so we'll have to do it a different way. But Carson, are you familiar with what a Murdershed looks like?
No.
Oh, well, we have our resident Murdershed Steve. He's in the green room right now. He takes Q&A. He does our Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be on here in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about next week's show. We actually have Natalie for the third time. We've been trying to get Natalie on the show for a while. She is a geologist with a focus on lithic anthropology. She's also a former member of the Methodist Church. She will be with us next week on Sunday, answering questions about creationism and geology and the biblical flood, that kind of stuff. But let's go ahead and bring Steve in. Steve.
Oh, well, hello, everybody.
Steve. You met Carson.
How's it going?
Carson, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not
Nice
sure
to meet
if
you.
it's entirely wrong to eat body parts, but I suppose that's another discussion for another day. I've got a quick question for you, Jeff.
Oh, great.
Before we really start things off. What did the dead man say to the man that killed him?
What?
Heads, because dead men tell no tales.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Well, I suppose we can get right into it. I pinky promise I have a couple of questions going on here.
Nice.
I've got a question right off the bat from Geo Sam.
Oh, man.
Why do Mormons baptize the dead?
Good question. So a lot of people, so we are sent to this earth to fulfill our destiny. And we, members of the church, believe that we lived before this life and we prepared to come to this earth. And there were certain things that we did to prepare to get here. And while we're here, we get to learn and we get to grow and we get to kind of prepare to meet our Heavenly Father. And some of the ways that he designed us to do that is through what are called ordinances, because our God is a God of order. He believes that we can't just be ambiguous in life. We have to, he set and charted a course and a path for us. And part of that is being baptized. In the Bible, it talks about how we must be baptized and be born again. You know, the baptism is a symbol of spiritual death and then spiritual rebirth, or physical death, physical rebirth. And then, you know, after we do that, we make a covenant with God, and that covenant allows us to progress down that line of progression. And we have different ordinances and stuff like that. So what about people who died and didn't get that chance in this life? Well, we don't believe that this life is it. We believe that we're going to continue to learn and grow after this life. And people who didn't get that opportunity to get baptized in this life, we do it by proxy for them, so that in the second life they can choose to accept the proxy thing. It's not like we're church after we do. That's not how we think of it. It's just an opportunity to accept or to reject.
Hey,
Well, I actually have
I got a quick call
question.
for you. I got a phone call. I have a person.
Oh.
Go ahead, caller.
Oh, can you hear
you can
me?
talk. You're on.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. First time doing something like this. I've heard a lot of, rebuttals on, like why you think a lot of people like you want to defend your spirituality, Mormonism and stuff, but I haven't heard the side of when it comes to women in the Mormon church and how you feel they feel. Do they actually feel comfortable? What makes you feel that they want to be there? I guess.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a case by case thing. Some women don't feel comfortable in the church, and so they leave. Some men don't feel comfortable in the church, and so they leave. So women as a whole, I'd say the most enthusiastic part of the church is the women. They absolutely love the community that the church brings. Especially women are very social, just by nature, just biologically speaking, and women thrive in the church. And so the women that I know that are faithful members of the church, they absolutely love being members of the church, and they're the strongest of all of us in their testimony and their faith and their example. But yes, there are some, for political reasons or whatever, that feel that the church is not fair.
Are the most frequent ones, and the reasons why most women actually leave.
What was the reason why most women leave?
She was asking what you
most
mentioned.
political reason.
Yeah, what political?
Oh, I see. I think that the fact that the priesthood is a male thing exclusively, women say, well, I want to have equal, I guess, I want to have the same role as a man if I choose. I want to be able to perform the same tasks as men if I choose to do that. And because that is not a possibility in the LDS church, men exclusively have the priesthood, women don't. Then they're like, well, then I'm leaving, because if the church won't change, if God won't change his mind so that I can have the priesthood, then I'm going to
So you don't think
go away.
that God wanted equality for men and women alike? I guess what's the reason behind why God in this mindset would not want women to be equal to men? Is there an actual thought process on that, or is that just something that it just kind of goes without saying?
I mean, you can think about it, and you can draw your own conclusions, I guess. So But what I would say is this:
there's no actual like.
no,
right
God did
like,
not. God did not create men and women to be the same. He did not. God created men and women to be equal, but not the same.
But submit
For
to
example,
their authority.
no. No. And I know that the Bible does say that. And I disagree with that. No. And that's never been my experience either.
In the Mormon church, though, women cannot be in charge of anything. They have
That's not true.
telling them what to do.
It's not even slightly true. No. If you went to an LDS church meeting and you just sat there in the corner and observed, you'd find that's not true at all. Women are in the front of the room and they are conducting meetings, they are facilitating discussions, they are leading discussions, they are leading activities, they're organizing events. It's this kind of weird. I mean, it just depends. There's a plethora of different things.
I'm really not familiar with the Mormon church in particular, so I guess I don't know what events you guys kind of plan for each other.
Oh, sure. It's a lot.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah.
What's one name that women usually want to rally up and bring everybody together on? What's one main event that you have?
Well, I mean, that's kind of an interesting question.
Kind of thing.
It's kind of an interesting question because, I mean, in terms of what men and women do, just in terms of organizing things in the church, it's basically the exact same. So it's not like women have their own flavor and men have their own flavor necessarily. It's just that men do hold the priesthood, and that's it. Women, I'll just say it very, very concisely. Women have just as much to do with with events that are organized in the church and conducting meetings and all that stuff as men. It's the same thing. They really do. And all I can really say is, if you want to learn more, go to an LDS church meeting and just sit in the back and just observe. Don't say anything. Just say, hey, I'm a visitor. I'm not really wanting to talk to anybody. I just want to watch. And you'll see what I mean. It's a misconception that people have. But women do govern in the church as well. There's a presidency, for example, the General Relief Society presidency, the General Young Women's presidency, the General Primary presidency, where women are in charge governing the entire church. Yeah, it's a process of delegation. So the prophet is male, okay, the apostles are male. They delegate tasks to other people, male and female, in the church. And those males and females act on behalf of the entire governance of the church. And males and females are both involved in that process. And so, yeah, I mean, like if you were to go to a church meeting, like a stake conference or something, there are just as many female, if not more, speakers as there are males. Just as many women giving prayers or singing songs or whatever, doing performances. It's just a misconception, you know. But you'd have to go and see for yourself.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't live anywhere near Mormon. I live around more apostolic and Amish people. I know that's not really, but Amish is not really. But just going back to what you said, the major political reason as to why women leave is because they still want equal, right?
Equal, yes, they are equal roles, or sorry, they want to have identical roles. That's what they want in the church. So it's not that women and men are not equal in the church, because they are absolutely 100%
valued as a person is what you're saying when it comes to the Mormon church.
Oh yeah, I know that women are definitely valued in the church. They're put on a pedestal, to be frank. But nevertheless, yeah, they want to have the same exact role as men in some cases. And I mean, if that's where they want to leave, go ahead. That's okay. I mean, some men want to have the role that a woman has, but they can't.
You said the church doesn't change. Like, you don't want the church shouldn't have to change to allow women to conduct, be in charge.
If it did change, it can. I mean, that's not up to people. That's up to God. And if that revelation does come, if the prophet says, "Hey, listen, we're at a different chapter right now, and the priesthood goes out to women as well," that's something I'd be totally open to that. And another thing, I don't want to get into it too much, because this is a rule that I have on my own show. We don't talk about the temple too much, but we talk about men having the priesthood and women not having the priesthood. In the temple, different story. Okay, women absolutely have that same type of authority. It's just in a much higher and more profound way. And this life is not the only life. I mean, after this life, women, I don't want to get too deep into theology here, but women have a role in creation throughout all of eternity, just like men do.
All right, I have a train coming in, so you probably won't be able to hear me, but thanks for taking that question, and I'll let you guys keep talking.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thanks.
Look at that. A nice, respectful, easy, wonderful questions. Caller. No trouble.
Wow, I should start doing Mormon talk on your guys' channel.
But, well, Steve, I don't know. Do you have another question in the chat?
I do. I got a few of them.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to sidetrack from Steve's shtick, but if I get another phone call, I'm going to interrupt you.
GeoSam is wondering if there's any corruption in the Bible, and if you have found any, could you point us to the chapters or verses that are corrupt specifically? And how do we tell the difference between the corrupt ones and the non-corrupt ones?
Is this a question for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to list.
Yes, I do believe that parts of the Bible are, I guess corrupt has its own connotations, but I would say mistranslated or just fumbled. But in some cases, maybe even tainted. like I mentioned a verse before, a verse that I could tell might have been on the tip of Jeff's tongue about women submitting to men in the church.
1 Timothy 2.
There you go. I disagree. I think that is corrupt. I do. I don't think that that's true. In fact, Joseph Smith, the founder of the LDS Church, did not believe that the Bible was pure. He said that we believe in the Bible insofar as it is translated correctly. And that drives Christians, or I guess normative Christendom outside of the LDS Church. We are Christians too, but drives them absolutely crazy. Absolutely zany. They go crazy over the fact that we take issue with the Bible being 100% pure. It's just not. It's just frankly not. There are other verses. There are things I wouldn't want I don't have children, but I wouldn't want my children to read in the Bible. Like, frankly, there's this verse about a woman who had relations with, and it describes a male's genitalia in a very explicit way, referring to donkeys and horses and things. And do I believe that that's the word of God? No.
Well,
pardon me?
2 Kings. When Elijah, the bald man. Have you heard?
Oh yeah. Yes, the bear, the sheep.
That's my shirt. See?
I saw the reference. I think that is another example of something that I have an understanding of God based on the lens of the restored gospel, based on the Book of Mormon, based on just my own personal experience and just my testimony of my Heavenly Father. And my Heavenly Father would never, ever, 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 ever send a bear to dismember and disembowel children because they made fun of someone's bald head. That is absolutely zany at best.
So how is it that we can tell the difference between what is nonsensical and what is, the truth within the Bible? What is this this mechanism that we use?
Right. That's a perfect question. A very, very astute, perfect question. And that's a great place to start. So how do you discern between what is pure and what's not? Because obviously, you can't trust any one person fully. You just can't. And it's not just because that person's fallible, it's because you are too. You can totally misunderstand a person based on their lack of clear English or whatever. So what is this medium that stabilizes all of the information that we receive, or I guess refines out all the dross or all the static? We believe, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints believe, that we can receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. And that is something you receive after you're baptized. You have to make a covenant first. And what that is the Holy Ghost is this medium that allows us to be able to comprehend truth in a pure way, rather than just with our own fallible minds, our own logic or whatever. I mean, if our logic was so good, all we would need is like one or two really good philosophers, and they would figure everything out for us. But yet we have thousands of philosophers that have existed, from Socrates to Nietzsche to Aristotle to Augustine, whomever. And we still are so confused as human beings. We don't know enough to treat each other right. We don't know enough to end war. We don't know enough to be decent to one another. And so that method, though it is absolutely necessary to engage logically and to, use reason to deduct truth scientifically, whatever it is, that's totally necessary. But what about ethics? What about the Bible? What about God? What about the divine? Just like I said in the beginning, there's this still small voice. You start there. You start with the light. We call it the light of Christ, our conscience. You can just call it your conscience. You start there. It's like having a bike with training wheels. You start there and you act upon the better part of your conscience as consistently as possible, over and over again, every single day. And then your comprehension or your discernment of what is true or not starts to kind of grow. And when you become attuned to that and you rely on God to use that power of your conscience to enlighten you, and you receive the gift and power of the Holy Ghost, when you read the Bible, what you're going to extract from that is through the medium of the Holy Ghost, and it's going to be pure, it's going to be good, it's going to be the Word of God. And everything else that shouldn't be there will just go into the background. And I know it seems very convoluted and very strange, because it's like, okay, then why even have the Bible?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like whatever you feel makes sense is correct?
No, not whatever you feel. There's a difference between feeling something and the Holy Ghost or the Spirit. It's distinct, but at first
like spicy chicken versus regular chicken.
Yes, I guess so. Or the taste of salt compared to the taste of, I guess,
placenta.
Or the taste of men compared
placenta.
To the taste of women.
Well, hold on, because we have a caller. I'm going to bring our another caller on. Caller, you're on.
Thanks. Hey, Murdershed, sorry for interrupting you. Carson, I got a question for you. First of all, are you any relation to Spencer W?
Well, I am related, but not like a direct line or anything. Yes. So I think he descends from my ancestor, Heber C. Kimball, but I descend from Heber C. Kimball.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused.
So that's where your family line goes. Okay. Next thing I had was you were talking about there was the mentioning of atheists and the belief in UFOs and other places. Isn't it true though that God dwells on Kolob?
So no, Kolob's not a planet that God lives on. Kolob is the name, of a star.
Okay, that's
but not necessarily a planet that God lives on. No.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to go into is a little bit on the word wisdom.
Okay.
Word of wisdom, it covers hot drink, coffee, and tobacco. You were saying it also could cover other things. But what about the extra parts in there that are mostly glossed over by a lot of people that don't understand it? Like about the prohibition against the consumption of meat in quantities, only eat that during the winter, that type of thing.
Right. Okay. So I've been confused on that same topic as well, because it's like, okay, the saints, when that was written, they were going through periods of having a short supply of food. They shared, outside the rest of society, because society didn't accept members of the church. They tried to kill us over and over again. They, burned our buildings and all that stuff. So there was sharing happening. And so I think that when that was, one way to look at it is there was only so much meat to go around. And Joseph, let's say, he had some meat and stuff, and everyone wanted his meat. Like he could only share his meat with so many people. And
makes sense.
Basically, yes. So when he wrote that, it's like, okay, the Lord wanted them to only eat meat sparingly. Okay.
Right.
Very sparingly. So let's not over consume meat. So that's one way of looking at it. Like, it's a situational thing.
Makes sense.
Another way of looking at it is, okay, it's a universal thing. It's something that will always be the case. Don't excessively eat meat. I actually used to be quite a meat eater, but I've grown to start to believe that maybe we shouldn't be eating so much meat, because look at the way the world is going right now. Look at factory farming.
Yeah.
My former co-host Brett O'Call was really into factory farming. He actually has family that own factory farms, and his family they own a lot of shares in these companies, like stock shares.
But there's something about men eating meat though. Like man meat is like a thing. Like people look to men to be meat eating, and so obviously if they were overindulging in man meat, like that might be a problem.
Yeah.
Not just for them, but for health. Like you can't take that much meat. It's not good for the body.
Yes, you shouldn't be. In fact, even in the Bible, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, there was this part of the Bible, like where, the other children or whatever, the other young men were eating a bunch of meat, and they decided, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, to eat vegetables and grains, or healthy grains and stuff like that. And they grew up to be stronger and more clear-minded and stuff. And so, yeah, excessively eating meat, like, you don't have to obsess over it, but definitely don't just, don't constantly just be sucking down sausage links every day. When you could be eating a healthy, balanced, vegetable, rich meal.
Man meat sausage. It's just not something I would ingest.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I got a new drinking game. I'm going to go back and watch this episode and take a drink every time Just Jeff says man meat.
Man meat.
Oh, I'm going to get drunk.
I've got one final lighthearted question for you. When I noticed that you've got a beard, when did they stop having the Mormons not be bearded, or the members of the LDS Church? Because when I was I was the only guy in the entire ward, in fact, the entire state, that had a beard.
Right. So it's just another weird policy. I don't know if it's going to be like ever overturned or just changed. It's not a doctrine. It's not like a fundamental theological belief to not have facial hair, but it's just like kind of an, you know, an image thing for missionaries to just be clean, you know, have good hygiene.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, not everybody can grow a good
in the
beard.
world, but not of the world.
Like
in the
us
world,
three, us three, we can grow a decent beard, especially Steve here. Look at just how full Steve's beard is. It's great. And
being beaten.
not everyone can grow a great beard. And so I think that in terms of just the image of the church saying, hey, let's require our missionaries and our leaders to just shave. I think it's a good call.
We won't even we won't even talk about the fact that I had long hair in the church, kids. So.
Grumpy, how long were you in the church?
I was in the church for about 10 years.
10 years. So you came into the church at what age?
About 25.
And why? Why at 25 did you enter the Mormon church? Was there a woman involved?
Yes, there was.
Say no more. And hold on one second. What's that about? What are you talking about, Joe Dirt and beard? Who's Joe Dirt and what's up with his beard? I'll have you know.
It grows in all white trash, all natural like.
I have different hair color here. This is blonde in these areas. You just can't see it on camera. Thank you, Grumpy, for calling in.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.
Gosh, these calls are so respectful. You guys, like,
I mean,
I gotta hand it to you guys. You've got to
from numbers I recognize that I just don't answer anymore.
Gotcha.
Well, Steve, any more?
Steve,
I got another.
Has anyone ever?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead first. I'll bring it up later.
I got another question from GeoSam. Shout out to GeoSam for the super chat earlier as well. Carson, can you tell us what Jackson County, Missouri means to you?
Missouri.
That's the old vernacular. You know, you'd say Missouri, you know, back in the day. So it is a place where the prophet Joseph Smith declared a sacred site was that is relevant to the human family. You know, that maybe so people think it's crazy that Adam and Eve or whatever ever existed. They're like, oh yeah, right. And they think it's even crazier that they existed, you know, in the Americas or whatever. But Adam and Eve, Joseph Smith believed existed in the Americas. And Adam-on-Diamond, which is in, you know, Jackson, Missouri, is a place where Adam, you know, communicated with God. And it doesn't necessarily mean a bunch to me, but when Christ comes again, Mormon, you know, members of the church believe that Christ will establish just a temple there. That's all it is, and that we'll gather there.
Is there
we think of
in Jackson, whatever Missouri? Is there like a monument? Like what do you have? What do Mormons have commemorating this?
So I'm not sure. I've never been there, but I'm sure that there's something. But I do know that the Reformed LDS Church, the RLDS Church, which is a break off of the mainstream LDS Church, they do own a lot of property there, and they have kind of like this weird church there that has like this conch shell spiral spire. People call it the Jesus slide. Yeah, but I've never been there. That's not our church. That's a different sect of, you know, offshoot of LDS.
Are there different denominations of Mormonism?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't call them denominations. I'd call them splinter groups because they broke off of just, I mean, I guess you could see like Protestantism, you know, breaking off of the Catholic Church. But then there's also splinter groups of, you know, they're different Protestant, you know, sects and stuff. So there are definitely offshoots of the LDS Church, people who differed, like, oh, I I don't agree with this doctrine, or I don't agree with this change or whatever, and they want to start their own. That's where you get the FLDS, for example, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the polygamous people, that wear like the pioneer dresses, and then they have the weird kind of updo haircuts and stuff.
Does everybody wear the underwear, or is the underwear just a certain?
So garments. I don't know if all the other offshoots wear garments, but I wouldn't be able to speak to that. They might.
Are you wearing yours now?
Yes, I am wearing garments. They're about right here.
Just making sure.
Yes, I always wear my garments. That's that I will admit is a tough transition when you're used to wearing comfortable undergarments. Having long, just long undergarments that go all the way down to like your calves a little bit. It's a little weird sometimes, but
when do you
not
start?
my calves? Sorry, my
thighs,
above my knee. Yeah.
So is that at what age does everybody, like, are you born into wearing garments, or is that something at a certain age you start at?
No. So just like I talked about with baptism, you're baptized, and that's an ordinance. And you can get baptized at 8. So after you turn 18, you can take another ordinance called receiving your endowment, and that is only done in the temple. And that is the place where you make another covenant with God, and that's where you gain wearing garments. But it's not like a rite of passage right when you turn 18. Like, people who are about to serve a mission get their endowment, people who are about to get married in the temple get their endowment, or you just, based on where you are with your spirituality, you can talk to your bishop, stake president, and you can do that anytime after 18.
I got another question from Jesus. Gay Jesus. The Book of Mormon is no cleaner. What about the verses in the Mormon side that are potentially corrupt, or
Mormon side care those corrupt? What's he saying?
I think I know
something about sidecars. I don't know.
He's our latest member. Let's everybody. Gay Jesus. Jesus is now a member.
Yes.
Roundtable membership YouTube. Thank you.
Well, so I think I know what he's trying to ask, in because we were talking about earlier the Bible being kind of messy.
The murder,
so the mayhem. The Book of Mormon's right. The Book of Mormon's no better. I totally disagree. I mean, you can of course cherry pick some stuff in the Book of Mormon, and you can take issue with it. And I guess that'd be a case by case thing. But I think overall, the Bible, especially the Old Testament, contains just quite a wealth of questionable things. And I'm not saying I don't believe in the Bible. I do believe in the Bible. But I believe that the Bible should be read with care, and the only way to do that is with the Holy Ghost. Through the Spirit. Can't do that just as a person. You really just can't. You need God to hold you by the hand in order to go through some of that stuff unscathed.
How does one do this? Get the hand of God to hold them while they read the Bible. I've attempted to do this myself several times under many different people's instruction, and it never really yielded any results that made me believe any more or less than I did before. And that's just my personal experience. So how does one actually get that Holy Spirit to translate for them, or whatever's required there?
Very good question. So, couple things. So
and then
first,
how do we know the difference? Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. The nice thing is no one will know the difference except for you. You can't force anybody to know anything. If it were that easy, I mean, if that were the way that God operated, maybe he himself would just come down to this planet and just reveal himself to everyone, be like, hey guys, put me on CNN right now or put me on Fox, and I'm gonna just make sure you guys know that I'm legit and I'm real, so that you guys can follow me and you guys can know that the Bible's legit and Christianity's good.
A good idea.
Yeah, that's the way that people are like, okay, you must do that, otherwise I'm not going to believe. And I totally get that. I really do. Because there are so many different people that profess my Christianity's better. My evangelical Christianity is better. My Catholic Christianity is better. My LDS Christianity is better. My Southern Baptist Christianity, Westboro Baptist Church Christianity is better than all other interpretations. That's confusing. That's nonsensical. That's a terrible. You can't just go by your feelings or by what other people say. You have to communicate with God. And in order to communicate with God, you have to become as a little child. And you can't approach God saying, I really have already decided that I don't believe that you could even be real. But I'm open to people using facts and logic or whatever to try and sway me toward belief. But you're going to have to get past my defenses in order to do that. If you have all those defenses, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to, what Christ said is, become as little children. In other words, teachable, open to being wrong. Because we can really, really believe we're right and still be miserably wrong. We can believe we're super logical and super just superior because we're so logical and everyone else is so dumb. We can believe that and still catastrophically fail. We don't know everything, but God does. And so how do we establish that line of communication? So one,
Yes,
is something I've already discussed at length, and that is start small. Start with the simplicity of your conscience, which is this weird thing that all of us have. I'm not saying all of us follow it. Of course not. Otherwise, Jeffrey Dahmer wouldn't exist. But start there. Cultivate a familiarity with listening, not to your thoughts, not to the chatter in your brain, but the still, small, tiny little voice that pervades, that passes all understanding. That follow. Then get on your knees. Really just open up and pray to God, and do so in a very sincere and vulnerable way as a little child, not as someone who's like, I'm just doing this as an experiment, but I've already secretly decided that this is not going to work. Find a grove like Joseph Smith did. Go out into nature. Open yourself up and let God come in. And ask him, hey, I'm starting small here. I don't know everything. In fact, I live in a world and have lived a life where I don't necessarily think I even can believe. But here I am anyway. Show me the next step. And then he will. And then you cultivate that. And it's a process, line upon line. It's a personal thing. No one can tell you what is true and what's not. Only God can. So you have to. It's a personal dance, and it requires work. It requires persistence. It requires following that still small voice until the light gradually gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter until the revelation comes, and it's unmistakable. You can't mistake it, but you can't prove it to anyone either. That's the frustrating part.
So Carson, I do have a question, because I've actually heard something very similar from many different people on how to connect to God. Some of those people included Muslims. Some were of all kinds of different religions, Rastafarians, Christians, all kinds of different, even different versions of those different religions, right? So my question is, let's say I do as you instructed here, and I come to a god like Krishna or something like that, and that's who speaks to me. how do you know when you have the right God, or is it possible to be led astray in some way? How are all these people doing the same thing and coming up with different gods than you are?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In the Bible, God says that he will reveal himself to many people in diverse ways. And here's a belief that not many people understand. LDS people have fundamentally in their doctrine. It's this belief that we accept anything to be true no matter where it comes from. Okay. And that I just botched the quote, but it's a quote from Joseph Smith.
It's okay.
But what I'm trying to say is this: the light of Christ, specifically Christ, exists in Hinduism, in Catholicism.
Whoa, hold on.
Yes, it does.
Parts of it right?
What's that?
They get parts of it right. What about Scientology?
That one might be a little harder to find truth, but there's truth in Scientology. Of course there is. There's truth in people who are hardline atheists. There is. And that is this belief that, fundamentally, how do I say this? I just, my words are slipping. Even if you're a hardline atheist, I think a lot of atheists believe that you should be good, not because someone told you to, not because someone in authority is making you do that, but you should be good because for the sake of being good, for the sake of helping other people, for the sake of loving other people. I think that exists in atheism in ways that it doesn't exist in the Westboro Baptist Church. So, okay, the Jesus person, we're becoming universalists tonight. Guess what? Mormonism started because Joseph Smith and his father, Joseph Smith Sr., who was a universalist, had these conversations. Joseph Smith Sr. believed that truth existed everywhere, that God existed in all these different places, and that God could work in all these different mindsets. If someone like Mother Teresa, for instance, was a Catholic, okay? God was involved in her life, period. 100%. She was a Catholic. Some Christians believe, oh, she's going to hell because she was Catholic. Her life was worthless because she was Catholic. Baloney. Yeah, light of Christ existed, and she learned some of those things in the Catholic Church. So if someone is truly following their conscience, and they are in a Hindu world or a Muslim world or an atheist world, as long as they're following their conscience, they're following God, even if they don't know they are.
Carson, I've got one more question in this little line, and then I got to go clean up a little mess that I got going on back here. Shouldn't talk too much about that, I suppose. But so if Jesus is working through Muhammad, if Jesus is working through all these other perceived gods, and then the true God would be, the LDS God or Jesus, why would he work in such a way that would invite and encourage so much animosity between all of his people that he reaches in so many different ways? It seems confusing to me that we have so many wars and disagreements over which God is the correct God, if he's the one working towards bringing everybody together under all these different banners. Does that kind of make sense?
It makes total sense. And it's a great question. My argument is, I don't think God is the author of that animosity. I think, so what I'm saying is God is able to pervade all of those different cultures and manifest himself in diverse ways.
So wait, so
he's the thing. He's the no. He did not write the Quran. He is the force that binds everyone together in a loving way. We resist that. We do. Human beings resist that. I mean, we talked about all these holy wars. These holy wars are not over whose God is legit. They're over power. They're over money. They're over conquest. God is merely the front. Okay, in all these the Crusades or in just all the different holy wars. God excuse is the for these for a reason for them. Excuse for the animosity. And it's not about Allah. It's not about Jesus. It's about gaining money. It's about gaining land. It's about toppling political power. And that's a human desire. It's not God's desire. God is the thing that connects us all together. And where God is, whether that is in Hinduism, not fully, but it's there. He's there. We can all understand one another. We can come together, even in an atheist. We can come together, we can find common ground, and we can connect with each other, and we can coexist, and we can love one another. And that's God to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just me. But that's truly what I believe. So,
well, I really appreciate you answering all these questions and everything. And I just got to say, thanks for stopping by the Murdershed, where answers get questioned.
See you later.
Hopefully placentas are not being pulverized in your Murdershed right now and encapsulated for later consumption. So that's that was a concern of mine.
Question.
That's okay.
I'm about to fry up a placenta sandwich.
Oh, okay.
That's rather gross. Enjoy.
It's got vitamins and minerals, though. You said so earlier.
A wealth of vitamins and minerals, frankly.
So one more time before you go, I want to tell everybody about your book, Window to History. You can read about furries and bestiality and porn and Mormonism and what led you to start your show. Those are topics that we discussed. And then, of course, next week, like I was saying earlier, we have Natalie, the geologist, finally on the show because I've put her off several times. Finally on the show to talk about some creationism. I don't want to go off on another topic and take another half hour, but what is the viewpoint of Mormonism on creationism? Like, is the flood a biblical, like, is that a real event, or is the flood like not a real event? What is your opinion on that?
The flood
like
is a
worldwide flood as described in the Bible.
I'm not sure, because I do believe that there have been periods where massive flooding has occurred, and I think that maybe whoever wrote that, they were writing from just a very, I guess, ethnocentric perspective. I don't know if there was a worldwide flood necessarily, but I do believe that there was something that seemed like it, and that's where that came from. So I don't know. I wasn't there.
Does the Mormon Church have a like an answer to that question? Like, is there a accepted answer from leadership?
Let me check real quick because I don't know offhand.
What do you in Catholicism? We have the Catechism. There's the Catechism of the Catholic Church that tells us these similar things. But what do you have in Mormonism? What is the book called?
We don't have a catechism. We have our minds, and we have the Holy Ghost, and we have the scriptures, and we have prophets and apostles. And it's up to us to go ahead and do that. But prophets and apostles will definitely. I believe that the view is that yes, that did literally happen, but I've never heard it like pushed. I think that a lot of members of the church would be open to it not being actually 100% totally all-encompassing worldwide flood, but that it was a global flood in the sense that the place of that whatever group inhabited was completely 100% flooded, and they had to build some sort of an apparatus to float and survive.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not even that concerned if that is literal. I'm not, because
Well, it's just there are Christians out there that are so adamant that it is a literal,
Yes.
you know, that they will stake that on their deathbed, that it's a literal,
Yes.
with what I believe is zero evidence to support such a claim. So I just didn't know. It does seem, I'll say there are some similarities in the way that you describe your religion and some other religions, in that, you know, you're not necessarily saying that other religions are wrong, or other religions don't have some things correct. And, you know, it's up to interpretation and people can be wrong. So I happily accept the fact that you'll say that. And I'm glad you said that people can be wrong, that you could be wrong. But there are people out there that are like, nah, this thing happened as the Bible described, and you're wrong if you disagree. So it's quite frustrating, to be honest, when you have somebody that will not secede their position when faced with extreme evidence.
I have an article for you.
Okay.
And it's entitled "The Gospel and the Scientific View: How the Earth Came to Be," and it does address that special issue about the flood. And this was found on on Church of Jesus Christ. .org.
Yes, I see it in the chat here. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go read through that.
Yeah, and so I don't know, you can't really say it's canon or something, but this is a prominent member of the church
and they're
writing about that question.
Well, I'll have to say, let's wrap it up here. We're getting close to 2 hours. I want to be respectful to your time. I appreciate you coming on the show and answering some questions. We have to do this again sometime, or get you on, get you in the hot seat on the Atheist Roundtable that we do on Saturdays. That's a little bit more questioning of things than you got here. We'll let you off early or evening night. But do everybody check out his show. It's on Monday nights. It's tomorrow. Mormon Talk.
YouTube.com/Mormon Talk. We're on at 7:00 Mountain Daylight Time. So do the math and figure out
who did that intro. Who's the voice on that intro?
It was just a friend.
Like mountainous, and it's a very I'll have to say very elegant, strong.
Live from Lehigh, Utah. You are watching Mormon Talk.
Yes.
With Carson O'Kimball and Brett O'Call. Yeah.
It's a very strong
intro. Thank you. You just a friend that does, he's had radio experience, audiobook experience. I don't know if I should give his name out, but just a friend.
You can just say a friend. That works. But cool. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Stick backstage. I'll be back with you in a moment.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys. So thanks again for tuning in. As a reminder, we have new shirts. 2 Kings 2:23-25. God sent bears to kill children. Buy a shirt. Support me, please. Also, this one, happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them against the rocks. That's Psalms 137:9. Look at the yeet. Go ahead and pick one of these up. Pick one up. And I'll have to say goodbye to you guys. And we'll see you next week, Monday night or Sunday nights at 9 p.m.